Welcome to the inaugural episode of Coach Stokes' Champions Creed podcast. I'm thrilled to introduce our first guest, Kevin the Soul Assassin Ross, an esteemed American Muay Thai fighter and kickboxer renowned for his accomplishments in various combat sports arenas. From being the inaugural Bellator kickboxing featherweight world champion to securing titles such as the Lion Fight Super Lightweight World Championship and the WBC Muay Thai Super Lightweight International Champion. Kevin's journey to success is nothing short of inspiring. Born in Reading, Pennsylvania, Kevin's path to greatness was marked by overcoming struggles, including battling alcoholism before committing to his dream of becoming a fighter. Now residing in the state of Montana, Kevin continues to push his limits, training and honing his skills both domestically, abroad, in Thailand. Without further ado, let's dive into Kevin Ross's mindset journey and wisdom as we explore what it takes to be a champion. Kevin, how you doing? Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, man, it's good to hear from you, brother. I'm doing great.
Well, Kevin, let's dig into it, man. Um, your journey from battling personal demons to becoming a decorated fighter is truly remarkable. What inspired you to make that pivotal decision to pursue your dream of fighting?
Uh, Losing one of my best friends growing up. He was the only person I ever told about this dream that I had about being a fighter. And it was so far from anything I ever thought I could do or anyone else would have thought I could do. If you would have known me back then, you would have thought I was crazy if I told you I wanted to be a fighter. So it was always just this wild thing in the back of my mind. And anytime I'd see fights, I'd be like, "Oh man, I want to get in the ring one day. That'd be cool to do." Anyway, I told my buddy about this one night, just randomly, and thinking he was gonna laugh at me. He didn't laugh. He said, "I think you should do it, man." And he said, "If anybody can do it, you can," which made me feel great. I don't know why he thought that. Uh, I couldn't believe he thought that, and I appreciated it. But I just put it in the back of my mind and went back to partying and drinking and doing what I was doing back then. And then he passed away in 1999. He was only 18 years old, and when he passed, I made a promise to him and to myself that I would go after this. That I'd finally go after this dream that I had for so long that I was just too scared to go after. But his death really sent me off the edge, man, and went down a even darker spiral that I was already on. I was just like sprinting towards the end, trying as best I could to kill myself, basically, without putting a gun to my head. A couple of years later, it just smacked me in the face that I'd wasted so much more time. And even after making this promise to my friend, I was like, if he was alive right now, he'd fucking beat my ass. So I put down the 40 I was drinking at that time, got in the gym about a week later, and that was January 2003. And then it just progressed from there and never stopped.
I never told you this, but I thank you for working with me when we say CSA because people had been trying to get me to come to the gym, just to train them. I had written boxing totally off, when I was done, 2000, my last fight, trying to make the Olympics, Olympic trials and all that stuff. I was like, I'm done. I'm done. And I didn't want no
Yeah.
parts of boxing. I didn't want no parts of fighting. But people was always coming back to me, as you already know, hey man, why don't you come, man? I want you to train me. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. And I'm like, nah, I'm done with that. I'm done with that. But then when I got offered to come to CSA and nothing against it, but I was out of the fight realm. I didn't know much about
Yeah.
CSA, but everybody I spoke to was like, man, yo, you going to like the cream of the crop. You got the best fighters of the fighters. And I had been hearing that.
Mm.
But when I personally witnessed it, when I saw the likes of yourself, Zoila, Eddie, Gaston,
Uh,
I was saying to myself like, yo, You guys are legit, man. I mean, I was on the elite level, but when you get on that elite level, you can see the differences of the training. Or even when
Yeah.
an athlete comes in, he walks in the gym, you can see that. You can take notice of that. And
Oh yeah.
my son is a competitive boxer today, and he's doing okay. But I want to
Uh-huh.
tell you, and I want to tell the world this: my son didn't learn boxing from a boxing gym. My son learned from a
Uh-huh.
Muay Thai gym, and he learned from the
Okay.
likes of yourself, and Eddie and Gaston and Zoila. So the fighting spirit that was birthed in my son came from you guys. So I want to thank you that,
Yeah.
man, because that means a lot to me as a dad. And I still remember that day when my wife was saying he wants to get inside. I had just got out of the ring, out of the octagon, as
Uh-huh.
we know, where I held pads. And my wife was like,
Yeah.
he really wants to go in there with you, Steve. I'm like, I'm working with Kev. She's like, just, that minute break, just hold pass for him. But I was holding pass for
Uh-huh.
you, and I brought him in during that time. So I just want to tell you, man, I really appreciate it. You affect people in a lot of ways. You didn't affect me Muay Thai wise, as far as me not being a fighter, but as far as being a coach and being where I'm at
Uh-huh.
today, I owe all of that to you guys, man. So I just want to tell you, I thank you, brother. Thank you.
Oh man, I appreciate you, man. It was always great working with you and having your family around and everything. So it was cool, man. I love you guys.
Definitely. Well, let me go a little bit further. Training in various camps, such as Thailand, must have offered unique experiences. Can you share how those experiences shaped you as a fighter and as a person?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Thailand is obviously it's the mecca of Muay Thai. It's where it came from. A lot of people think they're gonna go over there and learn all these new techniques and think it's vastly different than the training is here. But what it really is surrounding yourself in that culture, being immersed in that culture, being surrounded by fighters who do this for their livelihoods, who do this for their families, who aren't doing this for exercise or for Instagram followers or any other reason other than that. So when you go from a place like here where we get a variety of people that train, which has its good and its bad points, and then you go to a place where it's just 100% dedication, hardcore training, no bullshit, no complaining, nobody looking for shortcuts or trying to get the picture in the paper other than if they do the work that's necessary. So I always tell people that's the biggest thing you're going to get when you go over there is to see the levels, uh, the skill levels, the dedication levels, the experience levels. You got these kids going in there when they're like 6 years old, 8 years old, and just living this life up until their late 20s, maybe early 30s. So they get hundreds and hundreds of fights, just like you would see in a lot of boxing gyms in America. That you have hundreds of fights and you finally make it to the top, and that's why people like boxers are able to get there and stay there and do the work that they do because that experience you get on the amateur level, there's nothing that compares to that, to experience. And everybody's in such a rush to get to the top. She's like, oh, I want to be on TV. I want to make all this money and do all this. And then when you really look at like who makes the money and how much work they did to get there, and even that is only that 1%. So if that's your motivation, and I sure it's good motivation, but you can't rush this. You can't rush success in any walk of life. You have to go through the grind, man. And most people don't want to do that. They get very easily distracted by the shiny stuff, the belts, the cameras, the fame.
Yeah.
I mean, the good thing about Muay Thai, for me, not that I ever cared about that stuff, but that wasn't even a thing back then because people didn't even know what Muay Thai was. You know what I mean? And this
Yeah.
was back in the day before the internet's like the way it is now. So there wasn't really anywhere to look to get to. There was only people to look to say, I could never get to that level, but I'm gonna push myself as much as I can. But there was no end goal to any of this. It was always we're always just trying to get better, and not and everybody was on that same journey. Everybody in the gym was on that same path. Like we're all just training our asses off, fighting as much as we possibly can, and just seeing how far we can take this. But there wasn't anywhere to get to, and I think that was a good thing because you lose sight of the work that you need to do. It's good to have a goal, certainly, but not losing sight of what's important right now, which is putting the work in, testing yourself constantly, not giving up, and not stopping. And we get so easily distracted these days, and that's why you don't see a lot of fighters who make it to the top stay at the top. It's very rare that someone's put in that work because it's easy to kind of skip ahead in a lot of ways. I would say in MMA, especially not as much anymore, maybe, but prior you could have one really good strong skill, and especially if it was wrestling or grappling like that, and you could skip ahead in the striking arts. But then when you get in there with someone who knows what they're doing, striking wise, and can handle your ground game, that's a wrap, man. What I always tell people is you can't go backwards. You can't go back to the beginning. Once you're there, that's it. You either make it happen or you're done. It's too late. I mean, there's a few individuals who are able to take that step back and put in the work, but the more you develop, the harder it is to go back to what you should have done, which is basics. Get those basics, man. Get those basics down.
You young fighters that's watching this, and I tell you guys this all the time: basics, basics, basics. You cannot go wrong with basics. I mean, you think, like you said, you go over, and I'm pretty sure, Tad, on top of that, when you went over to Thailand, that's all they were doing was basics, 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 huh?
Oh yeah, and I mean the good thing was I came up under Ty, so I started with them, and that's what we were doing from day one. So when I went over to Thailand, that was just further reinforcement of that. That shit got drilled into our heads all day, every day, from the first day, and never stopped. And I still do that to this day. The warm ups I used to do, the techniques I used to make sure I focused on, keeping my foundation, my rhythm, my balance, my fundamentals solid. And those are the things that allowed me to do all that crazy shit I do in the ring, man. Because, the funny thing is, most of that stuff I never trained. I was never taught how to do the majority of these things that I did, but I was able to understand the pathway to get there, the 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 steps you have to take, but you have to have that foundation in order to build upon it. And then once you understand that, you can incorporate all these fancy movements because they're based in a solid foundation. The problem nowadays is people get trained the fancy movements, but they can never apply them in a real situation.
Right.
So
That's right.
yeah, you could do it in the gym, you could do it on the bag, you could do it on your Instagram videos, but not when someone's trying to bash your brains in. Try to pull that shit off on them, and you're gonna get knocked out. And you're gonna find out real quick that you should have been working that jab a little bit longer.
I remember watching you every day. You would come in. First thing you did was you sat on the mat and you stretched. It seemed like for like an hour. You stretched, and I used to watch you. And then once you was done stretching, you'd be on a roller pin. You would roll, I guess, those knots out, and then you did the exact same thing every day, man, every day. And I can tell you, it worked. It worked. It really did work. You know.
Yeah, I mean, especially once you start talking about wanting to have longevity in the sport, you better learn how to take care of yourself. And I was fortunate in the fact that I started so late. I didn't start till I was 23. So I already felt like I was so far behind and I needed to do everything possible to keep myself healthy, to keep myself sharp because I was making up for lost time. I didn't have those years when I was young and I could just get away with a bunch of bullshit and then have to learn this later on. I was fortunate to learn from day one because I had to. And I would say that's the good part about starting later. Um, you really understand that, and you don't. It's like people that have talent, they get spoiled, and they don't necessarily build a lot of the skills they need to because they have so much natural ability. But eventually, that shit starts evening out, and if you haven't built up the foundation and the fundamentals along with it, you're gonna crash really quick. So again, when starting late for me was, what are the things I can do now? I can't make up for that lost time, but I can focus on the important things, and making sure all that's sharp and I'm strong and my base is good, and I don't have any cracks in my foundation.
What would have been
And
the
that
difference? I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, no, that was it. Go ahead.
What would have been the difference between a 23-year-old Kevin Ross starting at 23 vice a Kevin Ross starting at 9 or 10?
Well, I mean, maybe if I had started at 9 or 10, I wouldn't have got into drinking and drugs when I was 12. But I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you know how it is when you're a kid and you're youth, and when all kinds of bad things are going down. And you see that a lot, unfortunately, when kids that start out early, you're gonna get distracted. I mean, it's really tough to not get distracted by all aspects of life, not even just the bad ones, just the way that life goes. So to be able to maintain that focus and drive throughout your childhood and youth and getting into early adulthood, that's a difficult thing. You got to be really dedicated and focused. I would say the good thing though is you can start to get in those reps, and then once you do get a little more serious, you've got a little bit better of a foundation. Um, so there's good and bad to it. I mean, I wouldn't say anything better or worse because there's so many other factors that go into being successful and being strong, all kinds of stuff like that.
Okay. Well, you are an author. A lot of people don't know that, may not know that, but you definitely one of the smartest cats I know, man. I always saw you reading the book as well, too. Always
Yeah,
empowering yourself, empowering your mind.
yeah,
Um, as the author, is it two books?
yeah. I got two books.
Two books, Soul Book and Dancing with Sanchai. Um,
Yeah.
how has writing complemented your journey as a fighter? And what insights do you hope to share, with your readers?
Yeah, I mean, at first, writing, as far as fighting goes, it was just something to help me keep track of all this crazy stuff and all these stories, and especially traveling overseas and the big fights and things like that. I always wanted to be able to have these memories. It's tough to hold on to like a lot of the details of stuff. Yeah, of course you could watch a tape of your fight, but how the training went in preparation for that, the sicknesses and injuries and just difficulties in training, and then be able to go back and back on that and say like, oh, here was this champion fight I had, but let me go back and look at how that training camp went. Now, like that was brutal and rough, man. And I went through a lot. It's easy to forget about that. So when it came down to it, I was really just writing for myself to have those memories, and then I slowly started sharing some stuff and people seemed to enjoy it. So I just continued to write more and more and uh, develop and want to be better, especially when I was sharing it with other people. It wasn't just for myself, particularly the mental side of training and the stuff that I would go through. I don't think that's the kind of thing that gets talked about or shared often. More these days, certainly, but that's the thing that most people don't know about and think that all you can take is what you see. What you see is people fighting and people winning or losing, and it seems like a very simple art. Like fighting is like most people understand fighting because we all grow up like just being being little
No,
shitheads.
no. I
But
wanted to elaborate because when you think about fighters, and I meet a lot of people, that I talk to, the first thing they think is a lot of fighters are dumb. We get the stigma of Rocky Balboa. Not saying Rocky, Rocky was very smart in his own way, but as far as talking, how we're gonna look, how
uh,
we're gonna perceive ourselves, so they don't understand. Could you elaborate a little bit more, Kevin? Because I need for them to understand that, but I need these other fighters to understand that as well. Where I tell my son, you're much more than a boxer. You know, you you
oh
you
yeah,
you
oh
don't
yeah,
you don't let boxing, just like you didn't let Muay Thai run you. You did it. You used it.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say the majority of fighters, particularly the ones that make it to that higher level, there's so much more than just this kind of physical specimen that just knows how to beat people up. Because there's so much more to it than that. And even to be able to get to that level, what you have to go through mentally, emotionally, physically, it's a lot more than just hitting the bag and fighting and getting punched in the face, man. So you got to have a much deeper side to yourself, I would say. A lot of most of the fighters I know are incredibly deep in that way, and all very different too. You know, we're all they think fighters are just like this one way. They're all over the spectrum, man. From really strong minded people to some incredibly weak minded people. But there's always ways to make up for those areas you lack, and I think that's one of the best lessons you get from fighting is we're all going to have our gifts and our abilities, and we're all going to have our blessings as far as like when we started, our athletic abilities, our mental abilities. And it's very easy to look at a fighter and say, or anyone in the spotlight or a place you want to get to and say, I don't have this thing that they have, so I can't make it there. And that was something that kept me from going after this for so long because I never felt like I've never been an aggressive person. I've never been a violent person. I was destructive on myself, but never outwardly. You know, I was very, very inwardly destructive. But as I said, if you would have known me back then, and like that's not a fighter. When I think of a fighter getting a ring fighter, you know, but I was very much a fighter, just in a different way that than I perceived you would need to be in order to be a successful combat athlete. I thought you had to be this certain way, and finally going after this, and then over the years, just seeing all the different personality types, I realized how wrong that was. You know, there's so many different personality types, and there's a whole spectrum of people that do this. It's surprising when you really get into it because it's very easy to think that we all had this kind of upbringing, we all had this kind of family, we all grew up in this part of town, that kind of thing. When it ain't like that, not even a little bit, man. So um, I think I think I think what's important for people to understand is anybody can be successful at just about anything. There's always ways to learn, to grow, to get better at the areas you lack, to make up for the areas where you lack. It's just a matter of whether or not you're willing to put in that work and sacrifice enough. It doesn't matter what the thing is. It doesn't matter if everybody that makes it in this thing is looks a certain way, talks a certain way, is built a certain way. You can make it too. And time again, that gets shown over and over and over. The people you don't think would make it do because they have to make up for it in another way, and a lot of times that thing is what gets them to the top because they've developed in an area most people don't have to. You know, again, for myself, I had to develop and strengthen in areas that made up for my lack of experience, and a lot of that was just my heart and my dedication. I refused to give up, no matter how hard it was, no matter how much I had gone through. I was like, you're not going to make me quit ever, especially after all the stuff I went through to get to this point. And that was one of the singular things that allowed me to get to where I got to was just that mentality I had and that thing that makes you push a little bit farther than you think you can. And just that little bit more and a little bit more. And it's that one extra moment when you wanted to give up and you didn't, and you went a little bit more and you're like, oh shit, and then that's things start to change. And then the more you do that, the more you see that you just need to keep pushing. You just need to keep pushing and adjust the things you need to adjust, and find those areas where you can. But a lot of it is just not giving up. Just don't give up.
So, in your opinion, let me ask you this: what separates a champion from an average competitor, both in and out of the ring?
Yeah. I'd say mindset more than anything, because it's certainly not a physical thing. I think talent is one of the most overused things in the world, and some of the most talented people I've ever seen didn't make it anywhere because they were missing a lot of those other things you need, and they were spoiled with their talent. I've never felt like I was exceptionally talented. Sure, I had like physical ability, but my talent was my dedication and my hard work. That's what my talent was, and that ain't talent at all. Anybody can do that. Most people just
Mm-hmm.
don't want to do that. They don't want to do the work. Everybody thinks it should be easier. Like if this is what I was meant to do, this should be easy, right? I'm like, nah, man. Most of the time, it's harder if this is what you were meant to do.
Right. That's
it's
right.
it's way harder because you got to prove whether or not you want to do this or not. That's what it is. I mean, do
Yeah.
you want to do this or don't you? And if you do, you're willing to push past those points that break most people, and that's what separates people. It's not talent, it's not family, it's not country, it's not race. It ain't any of those things, man. It's do you want to do this, and are you willing to go through it? And that's it.
It's every day. It's every day, man.
Yeah,
Every day.
and you gotta answer that question every single day. It's not a one-time thing. Those questions never stop coming, man. And that was something I continually learned through all the losses and the injuries. I remember just a couple years before I retired, I'd gone through so many injuries with like blowing my knee out and fracturing my skull. And then I broke my thumb, just this little joint in my thumb. And you would think that wouldn't have been like nothing in comparison. But man, that shit fucked me up worse than like my knee did in some ways because it was such a little thing, and it shouldn't have been this big deal. And that really hit me that those lessons never stop coming because once you got one area down, you're going to get tested in a different area that you weren't ready for. And
That's
I
right.
think that's why it's so important to maintain that student mentality through not only fighting, but just life in general, because it's never going to stop coming. Those tests are never going to stop coming. And the sooner you accept that, the better you're going to be able to handle it when they do come and be like, this is just another thing I got to do. I got to go through this, even if it is the same circumstance.
Would you say that was one of the most challenging moments of your career that you had to overcome?
What,
Was
whenever
it was
the knee?
with the injury? Yeah.
Um, that was the longest comeback for me, the recovery and all that. So in a lot of ways, yeah, it was difficult, but I had been through so many things coming up, like so many injuries, so many losses, so much stuff. I had just gotten to that point where I accepted it. It doesn't make it any easier. It's just like when it happens, you take that emotion out of it. It's like, yeah, this sucks. What are you gonna do about it? All right. So either you're gonna use this and get better, or you're gonna let this break you and you're gonna stop. And there was many moments in there, particularly in the beginning, like when I'm lying in bed, just in the most agony I've ever been in that first week after surgery. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this, man. I just like what it's gonna take, not only to get back in the ring, not only to get back to training, to get back in the ring and to get back to the level I was at, which is might be impossible. I might not even be able to do it. So am I going to do all this work and not even be able to where I got to? And what I realized was, what does it matter where you get to? You're either going to do this or you're not, and you're going to push yourself as hard as you can And yeah, you want to have those goals, but it was like when I first started, I lost my very first fight, and it made me question this right away. I was like, damn, man, maybe this ain't for me. But if you're only doing this because you're gonna be great and everyone thinks you're awesome, and you're getting all this fame, and you're probably not doing it for the right reasons. Or like, do you want to do this no matter what the outcome is? And that for me was yes. I want to do this because I love to do this, because I know this makes me a stronger, better person in all areas of my life. And if I don't do this, things start going south real quick. You know,
Mhm.
I gotta, I gotta, I got that addictive personality where I'm gonna find something to get addicted to. It just better be a good, positive thing that's helpful to me, not a bad thing. So, when I lost that first fight, it was only one day, but I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this no matter what. And then that gave me so much more fuel and fire. I went on and I never lost another amateur fight. It really set that foundation of, are you going to do this no matter what? Do you love this? And if the answer is yes, then keep going, keep pushing yourself, find where you can elevate your game and grow and be strong. But you don't know where the end of your road is, just like we don't know where the end of our life is. Like we're all going to die. So does that mean we should not live? No, that should encourage you to live even more. So that was my mentality through my fighting, was every day is the last day there is, because I don't know if there's tomorrow. So I'm gonna kill myself every day. I'm gonna push myself. I'm gonna test myself as much as possible, because I don't know if there's tomorrow. I know that I wasted so much of my life already that I wish I could get back. So I better make up for that right now. And that was something that I just kept and maintained from the first day to this day today, man. It's never lost on me that I shouldn't be alive right now. I've lived 22 extra years, 23 extra years from where I thought my life was going to be over, and where I almost did lose my life, and now here I am. So I've never shaken that feeling of every day is a gift, man.
You said something that was intriguing. I loved it, and I'm gonna start using it. Do you want to do this no matter what the outcome is?
Yeah,
And you athletes, you fighters, you athletes in regards to just living your life, man. You have to understand you're gonna take some L's, life lessons. I don't never say losses, because I believe a fighter comes back even harder through persevering through those life lessons. You heard it from Kevin Ross. Do you want to do this no matter what the outcome is? So do it for the love,
yeah,
not for the glamour, the glitz, the belts, and all that stuff. Because pretty sure Kevin will tell you that really don't mean anything. You got a lot of people that flash that stuff on social media nowadays, and you guys fall into it, but they barely can even pay their rent, or probably not even paying their rent. So you got to understand, man. You got to do it for the love.
yeah.
Um, Kevin, your moniker, the Soul Assassin, is super dope, man. That's one of the best names of all times. I'm serious.
Thanks, man.
How did you receive that nickname? How did you come about it? Please give us a story with that.
Yeah.
And what does it mean to
Oh,
you?
it comes with a story, that's for sure, man. That was given to me my very first professional fight, which was in Guadalajara, Mexico. I had taken this fight on 2 weeks' notice. So it's my first professional fight. The guy I was fighting had some crazy record, like 20 something and one. And he had his last fight was his first loss. So they were bringing me out there to help him to get his confidence back. So he was gonna put some work in on me, and feel good about himself. And I knew that going over there. I'm not stupid. I know what time it is. But as I said, the way we came up was, you're gonna fight anybody, anytime, anywhere. It don't matter who he is, what he weighs, how much experience he's got, what age he is. Like, a fight's a fight, man. You go down there and you do it. So I went down there and we had this fucking just bloodbath fight, man. It was gnarly. And he I mean, I just fought the way I always do, which is I'm gonna keep going forward and keep pushing it. And he just slowly started breaking down, man, and eventually he actually quit. He was on the ground. He said no mas. So after that fight, I was walking to the back, and this Mexican gentleman in the crowd came up to me. He basically said, "My it was." He was like, "It was like you assassinated his soul." He's like, "Your nickname should be the Soul Assassin." I was like, "Oh, that's dope, man." And then that's how I fight. That's how I've always fought. So it really stuck with me, and it's something that always kept at the forefront of my mind because that was my thing. That was my talent. Was I'm not gonna give up, and I'm gonna try to break you because for me it was I wanted to make people quit because I feel anybody can get caught with something and knocked out, but you have to be the one to quit. That's not something you can say, "Oh, I got caught with a lucky shot." That was like you gave up. You gave up. And I always knew I was never going to give up. So just being able to push past that, and I think the way that I carried myself and the way that I fought and the way that I pushed the pace, that just that was just who I was with or without that nickname. But it really fit me well. And you know, that was I mean, even in training, that was my mentality. Like I'd be running sprints and I think I want to break this treadmill because I'm not gonna break. I'm gonna keep running till this treadmill breaks, you know? And when we be doing circuits and stuff, like I'm not gonna be the one that's gonna slow down here. I don't care who you are, I don't care how good you are, I don't care how much bigger you are than me. And that was the thing too. I came up with everybody was at least 20 pounds heavier than me or more. And those are the people I came up sparring and working with. And I just had to learn how to stand my ground and and not back up from people. And that really developed me early on and developed my fighting style, that very forward, aggressive, not taking a backward step mentality. And that's kind of the approach I've had to fighting and to training and to my life in general.
Um, they say a real name comes from the people.
Yeah,
You don't make it up yourself. So you genuinely was given that name and have upheld it to the highest. Um, when you take L's life lessons, as I say, I don't use the L word. I don't like the L word, but when you have them or when you've have had them in the past, how have
yeah,
you adapted? How have you used that for fuel? Uh,
yeah,
for your future success.
certainly. It's easy to look and say, oh, you have a loss and then you just take what you can from it and you move forward. But we're still human beings, man. And it sucks to lose, and it's you go through those doubts, man, and everybody goes through that. I don't care who you are. I don't care how strong you are and how much you know the process, what you have to do to get better, and that it really is only two choices: are you going to use this to get better, or are you going to use it to get worse and quit? uh, it still doesn't make it any easier, but it does simplify it. And I feel that when things are simpler, when you can look at it in that context of you're either going left or you're going right, it takes that emotional decision out of it, And the other thing is, I think it's very important to feel what it feels. Like a lot of times we don't want to feel the hurt and we try to pretend like it don't bother us to lose or to get knocked the fuck out or get your head split open. Of course it hurts, man, and it's important to feel that pain and to be human about it and to process it. The key to that and to everything, every L we deal with in life is to not get stuck there. That's what happens to us. We get stuck in that heartache and we don't feel like we can get out of it. We can't see our way out of it. And then it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. So It's like when things happen, when you lose, when people die, when stuff goes bad, man, feel those feelings. Those feelings are supposed to be felt, they're meant to be felt. But you got to know, you got to make a choice, because you could feel those things forever. Eventually, you got to make the choice to dig your way out of that tunnel, dig your way out of that hole. So, again, for myself, was always simplify it. You know, uh, are you going to quit, or are you going to keep moving forward? Because that's the only choice you got. And I know what quitting feels like. I know what it looks like, and I know where it takes me. And I ain't doing that. So yeah, we're going forward. Even if it's hard, even if we're doubting ourselves, even if you know everyone thinks you should quit, I'm not stopping. And that's what really helped me. And that has helped me in a lot of circumstances, is simplifying it, taking the emotion out of it, putting it into a simpler context. You know, are you going to get better, or are you going to get worse? And that, if those are the only choices you have, and it might be you're only getting better like 0.1% a day, but you're getting better, or you're getting worse, because there's no staying in the middle, because even to stay in the middle, you have to try to get better in order to maintain that level.
That's right. That's right. That's
So
right.
yeah, that has helped me so much in everything. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily change what you're feeling, but you understand the process of it and the choices that you do have control over. And it's so easy to get stuck in that victim mentality mindset that we all do from time to time. It's like, this bad thing happened, it's not fair. Even if it is fair, it's like, this just sucks, man, and you don't understand what this is like, and all this stuff we tell ourselves, and none of that means shit. It don't matter. None. It could be very true, but it don't matter. What matters is, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do with it? Are you going to do something? Because you're the one that's got that choice. We all have to take that accountability, and what we do with these horrible things that happen, whether they were our fault or somebody else's, that don't matter. What matters is moving forward from this point, because that's all the past. That's gone. That's nobody's fault.
Even the victories are short lived.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's like, you're always going to learn more from a loss than a win. The key is, if you can maintain that mindset even when you're winning, and to be able to dissect your fights, and what you did well, what you did wrong, uh, not only in the fight, but in the training, your mentality, your diet, all that kind of stuff. So those are the people that really progress the most, is the ones that can grow from both wins and losses.
Evan, as a mentor, aspiring to other athletes, those that starting their journey within, Muay Thai or combat sports, what advice would you give them?
To put in the work, and to outwork everybody, to be willing to dedicate yourself more than anybody else is, because everybody takes shortcuts, even the people that try their hardest not to. We all do. So to be very self-aware, to understand, like look yourself in the mirror and say, what am I doing that I don't need to be doing? What am I doing well? What am I not? And the better you can self coach like that, basically, then the more you're going to get out of it when you have other coaches in front of you. That's such a huge thing. Like, a lot of people can be good when they got somebody in front of them telling them what to do, where to stand, how to move.
Right.
But how many people are putting that work in when they're by themselves, when nobody's around? And not just the physical side of it, but the mental side of it. Watching fights, studying yourself, um, where your holes are, where they're not, where you can improve, and um, where you're getting distracted by all the fluff, and getting away from those fundamentals and those basics, and put that damn phone down. Like, put that shit away. There's so many great tools that the world and that phones and technology can be, but nothing makes up for just putting that work in. And if you're not doing that, you certainly shouldn't be distracting yourself with any of these external things you can lie to yourself and say, "Oh, I'm studying, or I'm promoting, I'm doing this, I'm doing that." That stuff's all surface level. You got to build that base up.
Let me ask you this: out of all of your, you got a ton of accolades, brother. I'm really happy to be on here with you, man. You really do, because you are Muay Thai royalty. You really are. You really are, man. And I wanted to ask you this: out of all your accolades, which one is the most sentimental to you that you value the most?
Oh man, I don't really value any of them. It really was the fight itself and the journey and the things that came with. Now there are two that I would say are above all the others, and one was the lion fight world title because of so many things. Like I I snapped my rib 10 days out from that fight, man. And I had worked, I don't know what it was, something like 16 years to get to this point. That was my first world title. And 10 days out, I bust one of my ribs, and it was just like, dude, how is like I couldn't breathe, man. I couldn't even touch it. And then it's like, what are you gonna do? Again, what are you gonna do about it? What are you going to do about it? Yeah, you could say, oh, I'm gonna put this off and I'm gonna wait till I'm healthy and I'm gonna come back, and yeah, maybe, but maybe you'll never get that chance ever again. Maybe that's what's gonna happen. And I'm like, well, I don't want to go out there and he's just gonna hit me once. I'm gonna fall on the ground because I couldn't even touch it. I barely tap it without wanting to die. And then it's like I'm gonna go out there, he's gonna kick me, I'm gonna drop on the ground, and that's gonna be it. That's gonna be embarrassing. But again, what I realized at that point was you have a choice to make. Do you want to do this regardless of what excuses you have? Everybody's got excuses. Some are more than others, but we all got excuses. There's not a person out there in this planet that doesn't have an excuse not to do what they're doing. There's no 100%ers out there. Again, sometimes it's just worse than others. But again, I had gone through so many injuries at that point. I realized sometimes that's not even a factor. I mean, sometimes it is, but oftentimes that makes you fight even harder because you're going in there injured. You're going out there uh, half the person you should be. And I made that decision. I was like, I'm gonna do it, man, no matter what happens. And I went out there and I had one of the greatest fights I've ever had in my whole life. And the guy I was fighting was someone I'd looked up to for a long time, like super dangerous kid from Australia, man. And we just had this unbelievable fight. And to be able to do that, to do it in Vegas, which was where I had started, and where I had really grown up, and just surrounded by all my family and friends, man. And I just think about how easy it could have been to not do that fight and to wait until things were the right time, as if there's ever a right time to do something. And then another one, I had the WMC international title I won in or WMC title I won in Peru. I had just come off two back-to-back knockout losses, which was fucking awful. Um, and it was at that stage when I was like, maybe I can't do this anymore. I was later in my career, and those things happened. And I've always been someone who's had a super hard head and could take shots and damage, and then to have two of those like that really made me question whether or not I could do this anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
what I had to find out, I mean, what I've always known is like there's always three factors whether or not I was going to keep doing this, which is one, do you love it? Which I figured that's always going to be yes. Two, can you physically handle this? The training, the impact. And then three, are you getting better? So I felt like I was still getting better. Um, I certainly still loved it, but I didn't know if I could still take that impact, and that was a hard thing to get past because that's not something that you can really know. I mean, you know whether or not you're able to put in the work physically because you can either do it or you can't, like the reps and the rounds and all that stuff. But to know whether or not you can really take this damage, like certainly like sparring helps, but sparring is fighting, man. Like that's a whole nother animal there. So that was this question in my mind I had to overcome going in there. That was really tough, but I just it was that same kind of mentality, man. Like I have to be able to answer this question. I have to give 100% of myself because then I'm gonna know what the answer is. Like, yeah, I could have went out there and kind of fought and then got knocked out and be like, oh, see, my head was messed up. I shouldn't be fighting anymore. I'm gonna quit. Which is what you see a lot of fighters do later in their career, unfortunately. And that's a whole nother story to begin with. But it's like if you're not putting 100% in, then you shouldn't do this at all. Like just don't do it. This isn't a thing to play around with, man. This can be very, very serious. This can be life and death, no, regardless of how often that kind of stuff happens. You got to take this shit seriously. And yeah, I was able to just let go of that and say, I'm going to put everything I have into this. And then I'm going to know what the answer is one way or another when it's done. But I have to know I gave this everything that I have, and we'll just see what the answer is. And I ended up going out there and knocking this dude out and having a great fight, and that was winning that belt. And again, it wasn't even the belt, man. I don't give a shit about that belt, but that that test, being able to intentionally put myself into the fire, knowing that I was given everything I had and that I could be okay with whatever the outcome was. It's like when I retired too, it was the same kind of thing. It was I'm okay because there is not one single thing I can look back on and say, oh, I probably should have done a little bit more. I probably should have pushed myself. I probably should have taken that fight that time. I have like zero, absolutely zero regrets, man. And I think that's what we would all hope to have at the end of our careers, at the end of our lives, to know that we didn't hold ourselves back and we pushed ourselves, and especially when things weren't going well and when things were painful and uncomfortable, and all the signs were pointing to maybe you should do something different, and you keep going because in your heart this is what it was you're supposed to be doing. And that's really what it is. I mean, some people, that's not what they were meant to be doing. Then it's good to find that shit out early rather than later, man. Like that's why I tell everybody, go lose your first fight. You're gonna find out real quick, like, do you want to do this? The worst thing I ever saw was people win a bunch of their first fights, man, and go on and be undefeated, and then they have that first loss, and that'd be a wrap. They'd be done. And that was so sad to see, because it's like, man, you just spent all these years doing this, but you didn't really want to do it if you quit when you lose, man. And I had to face that my very first fight, which was great. It's great looking back. It didn't feel great at the time, man, but it's you need to understand what this game comes with. You need to understand what this life comes with. It comes with a life sentence. You're not going to get out of here. So what are you going to do with this time that you have? That's the question that we all got to answer.
You say you losing your well, yeah, it's no brainer. You losing your first match was a saving grace. Because like you said, I've seen kids, I've seen kids win 20 in a row. I've seen
Yeah.
kids win a lot, win national after nationals, and then somehow it's not about the quantity of fights you have, but it's the quality. And
Yeah.
like you said, man, you can get a kid can be 50 and 0, but then you get a kid that's like 1-9. And he'll look at that kid that's one and
Yeah.
nine, but that kid that's 1-9 has been fighting them but killers. And then you
Oh
can
yeah.
see
Oh
you can
yeah.
see you can see the difference in both of their technique, when they get to
Uh-huh.
that certain level. And that one kid, man, he can have that first loss, or that false motivation they've been pumping inside of him, knowing that he has not been fighting the same caliber type of opponent. And when he get in there, he loses. He retires. He's done. And like you said, it's like, man, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So, I agree with you. And like you say, when you sign up for this, it's a lifestyle, it's a life sentence. This is something that you're gonna be doing day in and day out. You have to. Because if you don't, like you said, we put our lives on the line every day, not just getting in the ring, but with going to practice, getting out of the bed, man. You don't know,
Oh yeah.
you touch both feet down, you don't know what the man above got in store for you. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did
I
want,
think that
no, go ahead, Kevin, please.
I was gonna say I think that's important for people to understand and accept. If you're gonna do this, you gotta know what can happen. Not that it will, or not that it's even likely, but if you're not willing to have that happen or go through that, then you shouldn't do this, man, because it might happen and it can happen. And especially when you when you're trying to avoid it, you gotta, I mean, you really do have to accept it. You have to accept, to me, I think you have to accept death when you go in the ring. Like, because your body is always going to tell you to give up, man. Your mind has to push past that. As I said before, you're always going to have a reason to quit. And if you got kind of 1 foot out already, like, well, I'll go to this point, but once it gets that hard, I mean, you're gonna have some really hard lessons to learn, man. And I think you should probably do something else and find something that you are willing to go past that point where people stop, because everybody's got that point, man. And those are the things that separate the good from the better to the greats to the greatest of all time. And of course, you incorporate talent and work ethic and all that, but you have to be willing to push past the point where most human beings would quit, because that's going to come no matter what you do. It's going to come eventually. And as I said before, it's better to have that answer the first day than 10 years down the line when you've sacrificed and given up so much and damaged yourself. Like, if you don't know that now, you're gonna have to find out one way or another. You're gonna have to find out, man. And uh, it's important to know that early. I think it saves you from a lot of heartache.
Um, Fame and fortune, especially with this generation with social media, it blows everything out of water. Like you said, back in the day, we didn't have that. We didn't have social media. You know,
Yeah.
if we saw a fight, we probably had to wait a week, 2 weeks, even a month to even see the replay
Oh
of it.
yeah.
These kids can see it within seconds. Um, how did
Uh,
you how did you stay grounded during that time? When you were a successful fighter. Definitely your name was popping, everything was big. How did you stay grounded, brother?
Man, I honestly, I never thought about it. It never even really like crossed my mind till much later in my career, and then it started kind of weirding me out. And then I had to find ways to get around it mentally. But like you said in the beginning, there wasn't any real exposure, and particularly coming up in Muay Thai, there was nothing, man. I mean, like, people in the community, yeah, they knew to a degree, but it wasn't like that thing where it's like, oh, I'm this person in the sport now, and like people look at me like this. It might have been that way. I didn't know it. I mean, I remember the first time a kid asked me for my autograph. I'm like, how do you even know who I am? Like, how have you ever even seen me fight before? Were you at the fight? How do you know me? And then it just eventually got to that point where I recognized that people looked at me that way, but for myself, I never felt like that person that people saw. And I still don't to this day. And I think that's just kind of the way I am as a person, though. I never viewed myself the way I view people I look up to. I don't see myself that way. I see myself as just like someone that I see myself as that kid that started his first day, man. It's like, I want to get better. I want to be better. And I see where the top is. I can't get to that point. So I'm not anywhere near that. You know what I'm saying? So in that regard, I always feel like I'm at the beginning, and I think we're all at the beginning because our growth is infinite. So we're all babies. Just because somebody's done more than you doesn't mean they have just as much more to go as you do. And that was my mindset and my mentality that I always had, and certainly it not being like a big sport or an accepted thing, and without social media and without the internet and without all that stuff, that helped too. But again, that was just kind of the way that I was, the way that I've always been. So that helped. And you know, something that really helped me was we had these two guys at the gym, and one of them was this really loud and arrogant and outwardly uh, uh, expressive, and this other kid was super quiet, super humble, like quieter than even me, which is crazy. And both of them were just great fighters, you know, and that really showed me that you don't have to be this way or that way. You can be who you are, and the world needs all of us to be who we are. We need all these different personality types. We need all these different cultures and viewpoints and colors and hues and belief systems, because that's what makes the world is the diversity of it, the spectrum that we have of everything. And we simplify it into these terms, and that gets people caught up in all this bullshit. But when it comes down to it, we're all vastly unique, even though we group ourselves together into these things. But uh, each and every individual is its own universe within themselves, and you aren't anywhere near close to anybody else. You couldn't group people together if you wanted to, if you really understood what makes each person the individual. They're so unique, man. And that's I I got to see that again. Which I said earlier was I thought you had to be a certain way to be a fighter, man. I was fortunate to be able to see early on that it takes all types, and you can be an amazing fighter, and you can be the quietest, the most gentle person in the world, and then you go in there and you're just this psycho killer. Like you don't have to be that person. That you're a different human being when you're in the ring, man. You're operating on a different plane altogether. It's like you're completely checked out from who you are as an individual in a lot of ways, man. And those are always the greatest fights that you have, is the ones you can't remember because you were operating on a different plane. It's what it truly means to be in the moment, because you can't. There's no thought happening. There's no consciousness happening. You're just in the flow. You're in that state, and you don't like we don't operate that way normally. We got all these thoughts going on in our heads. We're thinking about the future. We're thinking about the past. But how often are you in the moment? Are you in the present? And that's a very rare thing. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about fighting, or things like that, is the times you can be in the moment are rare in this world, and that's one of them, man. It's the greatest thing in the world.
I agree, man. I agree. The pursuit of excellence often involves continuous self improvement. With that being said, how do you prioritize areas for growth in your training or just basically in life in general?
Yeah, the biggest priority to me is I would say maintenance of that base level. And like when we're talking about combat, that's those fundamentals, man. That's my priority. Like I have to make sure I'm not only maintaining that, but strengthening those areas, those fundamentals, my basic techniques, my basic strength and conditioning, my basic mindset. And when you do that, those other things come a lot more organically. You don't have to go searching for them. They build upon the foundation you've laid a lot more. And I've tried to apply that to all areas of my life. I mean, one of the biggest ones for me is I have to stay physically active. You know, if I'm not physically active, man, all that stuff from my childhood and everything that comes flying back in because what's easy to forget is no matter how far we are from that place we used to be, it's still right there. You're not any farther than you were that first day. You can end up right back there today, and it wouldn't take a lot for that to happen. So to be very mindful about that, and for myself, I have to make sure, at the very least, I'm like going for a walk. You know, I after I retired, I took a month off and just didn't do nothing. And I realized real quick, I was like, all right, I can't live like this. So
Yeah.
let's at least start walking. All right. And then I started walking, and then I started doing some runs. Then I started hitting the bag a little bit. Then I started getting back in the gym a little bit. I'm like, all right, so this is something you have to do for your entire life. Not that you have to be in the gym necessarily, but you have to move. You have to be active. That's just, I mean, that's like that's my therapy, man. That's my mental health. That's my emotional health. That's what's at the base of everything else. And I know when I'm not feeling good, or I'm in a bad mood or something, I'm like, what have you been moving? Have you been working out? No. All right, well, do that first and then see if there's still problems. Because a lot of times we try to address the symptoms. We don't want to address the root cause of what's really going down. And the sooner you do that, the sooner you'll you'll at least be able to see things a little more clearly, what the issue is at hand. Because we get lost in that chaos, man. That noise of life is noisy, man. And you need something that grounds you to uh, the root of what's important, that gets you back in the moment. Because like 99% of that shit is bullshit, man. It's shit that don't even matter anyhow. It's counterproductive. So
Very
I'm
much
like,
so.
all right, just go for a walk, man. Go for a walk. You're gonna do that, and then it just accumulates from there like snowballs. Because it's like, all right, if I'm going for a walk, I'm going for runs, and I'm probably gonna be eating better every day. I'm probably gonna be a little more mindful about what I'm putting in my mind, what I'm putting in my body, what I'm who I'm surrounding myself with. So that applies to so much of life, and it seems so simple, and it seems like sometimes it can seem like a very like selfish thing, like, oh, you gotta go work out every day, you gotta do this. I'm like, yeah, I do, so I'm not killing people and you know, killing myself in the process. I'm doing this to keep me healthy. It keeps me alive, it keeps me sane. And when I do that, everything else is able to build upon that. I'm able to be better. I'm able to be better to the people in my life, the people I'm surrounded by, and farther than that, I'm able to come from a better place.
You mentioned the word selfish, and I tell every fighter, um, you are in a spotlight sport, individualized boxing, Muay Thai, any combat sport where it's just singular, tennis. You have to be selfish.
Yeah.
You really do. And I'm not talking about selfish as far as getting out there. It's all about me. You have to put in your work. You have to put in your time, your road work. You have to put in your time with getting up, doing the exact same thing every day. You have to eat correctly, properly. You know, you have to go to training. You have to be at the gym. You have to listen to your coach. You can't be going to the parties. You can't be going to these outings that they be having. You cannot live the normal life, unfortunately. And that's part of the price
Yeah.
that you have to pay. So you saying that word selfish, I had to tell one of my kids that. I said, you
Uh-huh.
worry about everybody else, man, except for yourself. I say you have to be selfish. You have to. When it comes to this thing,
Yeah.
when it comes to fighting and boxing, because if you don't, you and I both know, Kevin, it will show whether you're training hard or not. You getting inside of there. Not
Yeah.
just sparring, but fighting is totally different, like you said. You know, you have different
Mm.
speeds. You got training speed, you got sparring speed, you got fight speed. and you have competition speed,
Yeah.
world championship class speed. So that's one of the most
Uh-huh.
important things you said. You mentioned being selfish. You have to be. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times what we don't think about is we feel being selfish is wrong, but there's a spectrum to being selfish. I mean, like I said about I got to make sure I take care of myself every day because taking care of myself every day physically lets me be a better person to those around me externally. So, in order for me to be better to them, I have to be selfish to myself. I have to have that time to myself because that lets me come from a better place, a stronger place. I'm not going to react incorrectly or have a bad attitude about certain things. Things aren't going to bother me the way they would if I wasn't doing that. But it's very easy to feel like uh, you don't care about anybody else because all you care about yourself. And like anything else in life, there is a balance there, and it's important to understand what that is and where you need to put your time and your energy. But when you're singularly focused on progression in a field, you have to you have to make sure that time is put in there, and then whatever else you have, then you can start to branch out to your family and friends if you can even get that far. And something Eddie Abasolo, he broke it down really well to me one day. He put it in this really good terms because he's got like what 4 kids and a wife and everything, and he was teaching and training and fighting, and how do you find that balance? And what he said uh, was, it's the worst thing you can do is be with your family thinking about the gym, and then be at the gym thinking about the time you didn't spend with your family. So he said, what you got to make sure you do is you need to be 100% present when you're in whichever moment in life you're in. When you're at the gym, you need to be at the gym. You can't be thinking about your family. You can't be thinking about the phone. You can't be thinking about school. You need to be focused on what you're at, because then you're putting 100% of your time into that moment, and you're not sacrificing it. You're getting the most out of it. And vice versa. When you're with your family, you need to be with your family. You can't have your mind in the gym, because then they're not getting as much out of you. So now you're sacrificing both. You're sacrificing your family and you're sacrificing your fight career. So when you can you can get more out of 1 hour than somebody else gets in a 24 hours if you put that time in. And that's what allowed me to progress so rapidly, to surpass people that had been doing it for years. I'm like, yeah, but every day is like a week for you, a week of your training, a month of your training, I get in one day because of my focus, because I'm 100% here. And this is all I'm thinking about. I'm pushing myself to make up for that time that I lost, to make up for what it is I'm sacrificing right now. I owe it to myself. I owe it to them to be here, to be in this moment, to be focused and dedicated. And I think that approach is better than just saying, "Oh, all I'm going to do is fight and not think about anything." I mean, you're gonna think about other things. You got family, you got friends, you got this and that. But the question is, what are you sacrificing one for the other, and making sure you're at the very least present during those moments, and then it'll be a little bit easier to figure out where you're wasting time and where you're not, and where the value lies in those things.
We got a couple more questions before we conclude. I really don't want to stop, man, because everything you're saying is like you are a walking combat thesaurus. That's how I feel, man. Everything you're saying is just like, wow, it's a whole nother level. But I do want to ask you this. What's the legacy you would like to leave behind in the world of combat sports, both as a fighter and mentor?
I think the biggest thing I've wanted to show and show myself is to just never give up. And it seems like, oh, just don't quit. But that mentality and that mindset is so important in life, to keep fight. I mean, life is a fight. You gotta keep fighting. You gotta keep pushing. it don't matter what happened to you. It don't matter what the circumstances are. It don't matter how late you started in life. It don't matter if you, you didn't grow up with your parents, or you didn't have the right upbringing. It don't matter. None of that matters. None of that matters. What matters is, what are you going to do with whatever it is that you have? And to be able to show people that none of those outward things make a difference. And if you want to do something, you're going to find a way to do it. And that's what I had to prove to myself. That's what I had to learn. And that's what I hope to show with what I've done and the things that I've overcome, and the challenges that I've faced. And um, being able to face those things and know that you did it right, that you got no regrets. I mean, I remember my retirement fight. Gina was like, you need to face this the way you faced everything else. Like, face it the way Kevin Ross would face it. Face his retirement the way Kevin Ross faces my retirement, and leave no regrets, and know that you did your thing, and that's it, man. And I'm happy. I'm so happy with what I was able to do in my career, and I think that's one of the most important things, is to not have those regrets. Are like one of the worst things in the world, man. The worst things, and those are the things that I think cause the most depression, and mental health issues in the entire world. I mean, it all boils down. A lot of it boils down to that regret, and again, that victim mentality that we can all get stuck in. Feeling like we don't have a choice. You got a choice. You always have a choice. I always say, man, if somebody's got a gun to your head, you still have a choice. Either pull the trigger or don't. But you made that choice. They didn't make it. They made the choice to put a gun to your head, but you decided what you were going to do when somebody put a gun to your head. And we all got a gun to our head. So what are you going to do with that gun to your head? And it ain't nobody else's fault but your own. And learning to take accountability in that, and know that you made these choices regardless of your circumstances. That's something I would hope to leave, and to remind people of, that you always have a choice. It might not be a choice you like, and it might not be the same choice as you see others have, but you have a choice within the realm of your life, and the experiences, and the events that are going down. You have a choice what you do with those things, and how you react to those things.
Great answer. Finally, looking ahead, what goals or aspirations do you have for the future, um, for your career or personal development?
Well, I definitely want to continue to evolve and to grow as far as combat sports and martial arts go. As I said, that's something that will never end. As long as I got to say in it, I'm always going to uh, evolve in those areas, and keep pushing myself, and maintain that, and then passing on all this vast information that I have, and the experiences that I've had to the younger generation, or to any generation really, and how those things apply, not only in the ring but life, more importantly than the ring. I would say those lessons that you learn through combat, and through difficulty. I think some of those are the greatest life lessons that there are, because it really puts life in this magnifying glass. Like, we're all going to face those things in one way or another, those opponents, those difficulties, those losses. But fighting is something like, you have to face that every single day, and you have to face discomfort and failure, good times and bad times. And when you can apply those lessons to life, you're going to be a lot better off. What I would say is, if you know how to do one thing, you know how to do everything. You understand the process that it takes. There's no different. process. I mean, it's all the same process. The only thing that changes are the details, man. That's it. So if you can apply your knowledge in one area to other areas, you know how to get good at everything. You can apply that to your personal life, your professional life, your family life, all that. Apply that same mentality, that same approach, and yeah, I hope to encourage people to never give up and keep pushing.
Think you've already done that today. Definitely, you helped a lot of people out. You helped myself out. I really appreciate you coming on. Before we do conclude, can you let for those individuals who would like to get in contact with you, how they can reach you, maybe on your social media, or
Yeah,
like you said, maybe they would like to bring you in for a seminar. How should they get in contact
uh,
with you?
for sure. My social media, so Instagram and Twitter is the Soul Assassin. It's DA Soul Assassin. I think my Facebook is Kevin the Soul Assassin, and I'm pretty easy to track down these days. Just pop my name in the old computer there, and it's pretty easy to contact me. And my website is thesoulassassin.com. That's where I got all my books and merch and stuff. And there's a direct email link on there that you can always shoot me any inquiries that you have.
Everybody, thanks for tuning in. This is Coach Stokes, Champions Creed. You tuning in. Very first episode with my man Kevin Ross. And like I said, what makes a champion? The foods you eat, the times you sleep, the friends you keep, the knowledge you seek, and the words you speak. Keep that in mind. Keep your hands up. I'm Coach Stokes. Out. Hold on, Kev.